Welcome to the Math Record. Today I'll be covering the third part of the ICTM Regional 2015 Division Double A Geometry, which I'll be answering questions 18 and 20. Let's begin with 18. A circular cylinder is 4 inches in diameter and 6 inches in height. A fly crawls from a point on the top rim to the point on the bottom rim diametrically opposite the starting point. Determine the shortest path that the fly could crawl in inches. So basically we have a cylinder. Connect the points. And then we have a fly, let's say it's right here. So that means diametrically opposite on the bottom would be right here. So how do we get the shortest distance? Well, basically, instead of looking at this in 3D, what we could do is that we could look at this in 2D. So imagine we have a piece of paper and we took one end and we glued it to the opposite end. Well, that if we put it together, it's going to look like a cone, right? Which makes sense because if this is empty, the top base and the bottom base was empty, it's just a paper that's connected together. So if we cut it right where the diametrically opposite point is at, then we have a paper again, and we could think about it in 2D now. So if we cut it like right here, right, then it's going to cut it right at the diametrically opposite point. That means it's going to be right here, because that's where we cut it, right? Because we glued this side and this side together as our paper. So where is going to be this point? Well, if our diametrically opposite point, we go around the circle, well, that's 180 degrees, which makes sense because that's diametrically opposite. So that means it's halfway, so it's going to be right here. Now, how do we get the distance? We'll just connect the 2 points together. So what does this look like? Well, it's a right triangle, so it's probably much easier to see now. So what's the length of this? Well, that's just this. So that is just the circumference of the circle. So the circumference is pi times 4 times pi, which is 4 pi. Since it's halfway, that means this is 2 pi. What's our height? Our height is 6. So now you could just use the formula. So 2 pi squared plus 6 squared, then take the square root. So the Pythagorean theorem gives us, basically, if you use your calculator, we get 8.688. And that is your answer for number 18. So this is just a 2D representation. How do we know that this kind of works? Well, if we imagine it, what would this map out to in 3D? Well, basically, it's just going to go around a curve-wise in our cylinder. So it looks something like this, right? So it's going to be curving around. Kind of really bad. It's hard to see, but it's just like curving. So it makes like a curved right triangle. And that's a way you can visualize to see what's the shortest path is. Okay, now question 20. The centers of all 6 faces of a cube with side lengths 10 are connected to form a platonic solid. Determine the exact volume of the solid. Well, basically, we could just make a cube and then the bottom, connect the vertices. Oops, and this. So we're just going to ignore the center on the bottom and just get the center of the other ones. So the back one, the right one, the left one, the front one, and the top one. I'm just going to put the top one right here so then it's easier to see. Actually, let's say right here. So we're going to connect the ones in the middle. So what does that make? Well, that makes a square. And how do I know it? Well, if you take like basically a 2D square, because if you're looking up from it, you're looking at just a square. So basically, if we take the midpoint of each of the square and we connect them together, we just made another square. So that's just the idea of how you know it's a square. So we're going to connect those centers to our top center. Now what do we make? Well, that's just a square pyramid because now it's 3D. So how do we get the area of the volume of a square pyramid? Well, that's 1/3 times base times height. So 1/3 times what's our base? So our base is just a square, so we just need to find the square side length squared. So that will get our b squared, I mean our base area. So we just need to find that length. So we make a right triangle right here. That's a 45 degrees because it's the same idea as how we did it with our square and square. Right, this is 45, this is 45, that's 90, right? It's just a common shape. So since the side length is 10, that means this is 5 and this is 5 because we cut it from the center. So 5 times, so this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So this is just 5 times square root 2. So this is 5 square root 2. So that means the base area is 5 square root 2 squared, which is just 50. So what's our height? Well, if we look at it from the side, right, we have things that were connected and then we basically have that height. So it's kind of hard to draw from 2D to 3D, but basically we have the center, and since we cut it in half, this side length is 10, but since it's right here that we're looking for just the top part, it's just 5, so that means our height is 5. So now we have everything, so 1/3 times 50 times 5, that's 250 over 3, and then times 2, because this is just the top part, we need the bottom part also, because if there was the bottom part, we could connect to all the middle points, and then we get a square pyramid that's face down, so that would just be times 2, so that is 500 over 3. And that is our total volume for number 20. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next math record.